Hello, my friends. This is Paul, and welcome back to another episode of ISTJ Info Dumping. This time talking about what it's like for ISTJs to be in a romantic relationship. I tried to do a couple of other takes of this, but it ended up being too impersonal. Like I would always say, ISTJs tend to, as opposed to, I'm an ISTJ myself. Why don't I just talk from personal experience? I used to give public speeches on autism. And normally I'd get like extremely high ratings, but the one criticism they'd have that'd prevent it from being 100% approved is, Paul, talk about your own experiences, will ya? Why do you keep talking about Asperger's people and not yourself? So I said, okay, well, I guess I'll do that with this video. I'll try to relate it to the general ISTJ thought pattern, but no promises. Talking about ourselves, generally speaking, is not something ISTJs like to do unless they're comfortable with people. So, cut me some slack, will ya? Anyway, first and foremost, our inferior intuition is going to make it so that we don't necessarily seek out a relationship right away for its own sake. We're likely going to think long and hard about why we need a relationship. And then we're going to think long and hard about if the person that we're seeking out is a suitable partner. Because you got to remember, ISTJs, while it may be tertiary, it still exists. Introverted feeling, which means they're likely going to have their own set of morals and values that they're going to look for in a partner. So, typically speaking, at least for me, this is what I value in partners. ISTJs are going to like people that are honest, straightforward, loyal, dependable, not a hypocrite, one who owes up to their word, punctual, dedicated, and non-abstract. Typically, we're going to have a hard time dating someone with a dominant intuition as their preference. Likely, they're going to just confuse us too much, and communication will be a nightmare, especially if you have Asperger's syndrome like me. Then it'll be a double nightmare, because I've always said that, we amplify the ISTJ top functions and, drain even more the inferior ones. So ISTJs are typically literal thinkers, while Asperger's ISTJs are going to be very literal thinkers. I know some of this may seem repetitive to those of you that have been longtime viewers of my channel, but it's info dumping. It kind of just comes, just as people that express what they're feeling might express their own emotions over and over and over again. So take of it what you will. When I first got into my first relationship, it took a long time for me to realize that she was worthy of dating. In fact, I didn't even date at first. I did what's called half dating, where I said, well, okay, how about we contemplate the possibility of being in a committed dating relationship? Then we'll consider if we're dating partners or not. So I wanted to make sure that this person would be suitable for the long term, but also know how to adjust to this new form of living. Because, being single, all of my life prior to that, there was a lot of comforts from that. There was a lot of, you don't need to worry about anyone or anything. You can just do things your own way, grow your hair your own way, play your own video games to your heart's content. And then having to be in this state of mind where you're constantly thinking about someone else with a different perspective, and you have to honor that perspective. It was a scary prospect, not gonna lie. But ISTJs don't typically seek out relationships for the pleasure of it. Well, at least I'm not. Maybe there are some ISTJs out there that have really strong impulses. But for me, it wasn't so much about I'm definitely excited to start sleeping with this person. It was more so of, is this person going to be a suitable option for the future, for say, protection and companionship. The emotional needs sort of were on the back burner, although they did exist. I definitely thought, like, it's not good that I stew all of these things in my head forever. I'm eventually going to need a trustworthy person that I can talk to about things that I wouldn't necessarily open up to anyone else. And I would also think about whether the person would be capable of being a good mother. Now, of course, there are going to be ISTJ women out there. I happen to know an ISTJ woman. She's pretty interesting. Probably the closest I've ever met to meeting someone like me. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about ISTJs in general. Although if I sound sexist, it's because I don't know what it's like to be a woman, so I'm speaking from a man's perspective. Sorry, guys. I can try, but I can only go with what I have, I guess. So, ISTJs... We ISTJs are likely going to have a hard time wanting to fulfill the partner's needs if they're not compared to an ISTJ's own needs. For instance, let me use the example of my family as just a broad category of how the ISTJ thinks about other people's needs in general and then try to relate it to a relationship level. So my family loves big trips. And a lot of times they'll wonder why I have no desire to go. And I'll just say, what's the point? Like, are you going there to evangelize? Are you going there because you're going to get a raise on your job if you go? Why can't you just look at Google Images to see the Grand Canyon? Besides, weren't you complaining about financial problems just the other day? So now you're spending gas money to go all the way across the U.S. just to see a bunch of rocks? It didn't seem like a very practical way of doing things. And you might be wondering, Paul, do you ever like to travel? Yeah, if it's beneficial. But I don't like traveling for the sake of traveling. I like traveling because I'm going to get something out of it. But if there's a cheaper alternative, I'll take it. So in the same way, I initially had a hard time figuring out what it was that Autumn needed. So she had to go out of her way to try to speak very plainly and straightforward and compare a lot. She would have to say, like, okay, Paul, so you need your structure. So I need my hugs. That is my structure. That is my routine. Then I said, well, I don't mind giving out hugs. That was just a rhetorical example because I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head, but there were definitely times where I was just not getting like what it was that she needed. But once I did get it, I made all the effort to make sure that that need was being met. Because ISTJs don't like being hypocrites. Me, most certainly, I did not want to be a hypocrite. So I thought, okay, well, if I would get angry at her for disrupting my need for stability, then she's going to get angry at me for disrupting her needs for emotional gratification. So in order to do a little give and take, there were times where I'd have to exercise my feeling side because she was an ENFJ. So, of course, I had to be willing to get all mushy on occasion. And that I did, as corny as it sounded to her, because my feeling side was so underdeveloped. Now, keep in mind that everything I'm saying here is about relationships. I'm not talking about how we're going to be along the line in a marriage or in the bedroom or anything like that. I don't know what that's like. I've been chaste my whole life and I've never been married. So that's something that's outside of my purview. If you want to talk about that, go to one of those impersonal YouTube channels out there, because goodness knows how hard it is to find an ISTJ willing to talk about their own life in a relationship. And they say INFJs are rare. Um, as far as gift giving, we're that's going to be hard for us because, at least for me personally, I'm going to want to do something that the other person personally appreciates. Not as a, oh, well, this is what every person does, but more so of this is what this person wants. So there was once a time, I don't remember if I was romantically attracted to this person at this point or not, but there was a friend I deeply cared for. And I wanted to show how far I had come in, like, not being so rigid. But I didn't want to just say it. I wanted to give her something tangible so that she knew, like she could see a sign. I guess you could say it was wishful thinking, because ISTJs like evidence. They like ways of knowing that what the person says is true. So I guess I wanted to do for her what I would have wanted had it been the other way around. So I gave her some eyebrow tweezers. Now, that may seem like a totally ridiculous option. Like, Paul, I'm sure that would have cost her like $1 to get her own eyebrow tweezers. But it was my way of saying, I think that with or without eyebrows, you are still a magnificent person. And she took that as a great compliment, because I was initially just like, no, 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 no. Why do you spend so much time plucking your eyebrows? It's totally unnecessary. Of course, the logical reason is that I have a hard time with faces. So with eyebrows, they're a good focal point, and it's really easy to tell if someone is angry when you have eyebrows. But when your eyebrows are like this all the time, when you're angry, they kind of go like only like this, and then I can't tell if they're angry or not because they only go down this much. That's just me. Not every ISTJ is like that. Although, generally speaking, ISTJs are not really going to pay much stock to facial expressions either. Or they might do the other way around. Like, for me, if a person just does not smile, I'm going to be constantly thinking they're in a bad mood. Not because I'm detecting any vibes, but because I'm looking at the physical. And scientifically speaking, when a person is not happy, they're not going to smile. Now, I get it. There are some people that are just not smilers. I know I've been told that I can kind of... Microphone troubles. I've been told that I can sometimes have a non-smiling, like, unhappy look. But that's usually because I'm deep in thought. But, like, I like to smile when I'm talking about something that I like, or when I'm laughing at a joke, because I like humor. But there are some people that just don't smile even when they're talking about something that they like. And that's when I get concerned. And I say, is there something wrong? And they say no. However, with relationship partners, sometimes it was hard to determine when something was bothering my partner. Partner is such a bad word. My girlfriend. That's better. This is hard to talk about because it was a very painful separation. So I would like to keep this impersonal, but a lot of ISTJs are too impersonal already. So I'm gonna try to like get over this hardship. But just so you know, we're not perfect saints. Not like the ESTJs where we're just not gonna let our feelings affect us at all. To us, there's at least a smidgen of holding back. Thankfully, with dating an ENFJ, it typically wasn't hard to know that she needed something. Typically, she'd be pretty outright in saying it, or she'd be outright in yelling at me about it later. After I was insensitive, which would have been nice if I had done that ahead of time, girl. Also, there's going to be a lot of rules. A lot of times, ISTJs, especially myself, are going to have like guidelines for how to be a perfect partner that they're going to give to their dating partner ahead of time to say, like, these are the do's and don'ts of the relationship, and these are my terms of conditions for whether or not we're going to break up. Because you see, ISTJs don't like entering into a relationship if there's even the slightest chance that it's not going to work out. They would prefer it if they would be, like, dating, but not in a committed dating relationship, if there's a chance that it's not going to work. So, for me, I would often say, like, if you break this rule, you're out of here. For me, those rules tended to be, like, don't try to steal me away from my friends. Don't lie. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't... Okay, there are a lot of don'ts in there. It's pretty hard to think of a lot of do's because I feel like ISTJs are typically pretty good at being able to explain what they need. Typically, they'll just outright say it. They'll say, like, hey, could you, like, leave me alone right now? I need some peace and quiet. Or they might say, yo, let's go to GameStop. They'll be like, do you really have to go to GameStop? They'll say, like, yeah, that's my leisure time, just as you like to watch soap operas in your spare time. That might have been a bad example. I'm sorry, guys, but I think I might just have to stop here because this is going to get way too into painful territory. I think I'd prefer it if this was just like an open forum from this point on. Like, if I missed something, ask in the comment section and just say, like, Paul, you forgot to mention what ISTJs do when they're upset at their partner. Or, like, what would be an example of where an ISTJ would initiate a breakup because you guys are so loyal. That's the kind of stuff that I'm hoping this info dumping will become. So, thank you for putting up with me for this long. This was definitely one of the hardest ISTJ info dumping episodes I've ever done. Besides maybe the the shadow functions / trying to cry episodes. So, I don't normally ask for this, but a like, if you mean it, would be greatly appreciated. Don't just like because you feel sorry for me or you're just like, Paul, I'm just gonna like it because you're you. No. If you think this video is terrible, give it a thumbs down. You know, I don't want people watching something that's terrible. So be honest. Like or dislike, but at least tell me why you did it. That way I can take into account my mistakes for future videos, and for if the video is a rousing success, I can say, okay, I'll do more of this more often. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and don't lie. Bye!